This year has been quite the doozy. Ups, downs, stagnation, and points where you just feel like, what's the point of all this in the first place? But I do think I'm learning more about myself and the things and mindset that I need to have to get to where I want to be. So people set New Year's resolutions because it gives them somewhat of a fresh start from a pretty mediocre year. When people fail to develop the systems and daily habits that they need to put into place to actually reach their resolution, they can grow bitter to their own dream. The simple thought of their goal can become tedious and convoluted and really just stops them from trying in the first place. Because it seems scary, and by setting these resolutions, they can set themselves up for expectation, and by not meeting that expectation, they just feel disappointed because they can't do it. Setting a resolution gives us hope for the future, but it's kind of misleading. Giving myself a goal is a good starting point, but if I can't make more specific daily goals to reach that big daddy goal, then it's really pointless. And not only is it pointless, but it's also harmful. If I set out to do something important and I just can't do it, then I reassure myself as someone who's incompetent, which discourages me from trying in the future. Only 8% of millennials and Gen Z actually accomplish their resolutions, while 92% are a bunch of bums like myself. Numbers don't lie, but they certainly don't tell the full story. 8% who do accomplish what they're trying to do can be setting more small and realistic goals, while the other 92% can be trying to solve world hunger. So that's the problem, right? Setting unrealistic goals. By that, I mean telling yourself to become something without setting the framework and foundation with daily habits. Anything's unrealistic without a plan to make it real. The craziest things that I've wanted to do that people thought were unrealistic for me became realistic after I failed and readjusted. I readjusted those steps to be smaller everyday steps. I used to play tennis in high school, and we were in the state championship. We were down bad and I was low-key freaking out, and something that my sister said to me that will always stick with me is take this one point at a time, one ball at a time, one game at a time. Which I'm pretty sure Rocky said that in the 80s, but I'll give her credit for the bunk tennis spin-off. But the message that I'm trying to get across in this video is that merely setting up a goal doesn't do much, or at least as much as we've been told it does. Because what happens when your strategy fails, or the work that you've been putting into this thing, you're not seeing the growth and you're not seeing the accomplishments that you want to see, or at least you're not seeing results as fast as you want. These are like confusing questions, right? And it can make the whole concept of even trying in the first place be very just tedious. So broad, non-descriptive goals are the issue. I think another issue is expecting a version of my future self who is identical to my present self to boss up and make shit happen. So Einstein said, we cannot solve a problem on the level of consciousness that created it, meaning that we need to step out of our current habits. And so the way that I like to think about this is by asking myself the question, is what I'm about to do something that someone who is in the position that I want to be in would do? For example, a goal that I had this year is to put on 5 to 7 pounds of lean muscle while putting on 10 to 15 pounds on my bench press, while also maintaining a pretty lean physique. One of my biggest influences in the fitness realm is Jeff Nippard. And anytime that I want to skip a meal or replace a meal with some shit food or just not train, I ask myself, would a tank such as Jeff do this? Corny as it may be, it helps. If you look at people who've mastered their craft in anything, this is the approach that they're taking. They're pushing themselves to whole different levels, and they're using pain as leverage because they know for damn facts that their comp can't handle it. Which really just leads me to my next point, which is most people will never get where they want to go because they embrace comfort. Comfort is a wasteland that just slowly puts you under. At least if you try something and fail, you can at least say that you learned something from it. Sometimes a step backward creates a new path forward. But the idea that we could comfortably work towards something that's worthwhile is just non-realistic. It's either one or the other, but it can never be both. That doesn't mean that occasionally treating yourself is bad, but what constitutes occasional? Occasional from something that you used to do often can still be pretty frequent to somebody who doesn't have that same issue. We can develop emotional attachment to comfort and not realizing it that it's doing us more harm than good. This is obviously easier said than done because it's not just you encouraging whatever comfort level that you experience, but it can also be the people around you. So it can kind of feel like you have some social obligation to upkeep a certain habit, which I think the only way to really get out of this loop is to give yourself a strong enough reason to get out of it. Reflect on an emotion that got you fucked up and how you never want to feel like that again. Everybody wants to be respected, but if you can't give yourself the simple courtesy of respecting yourself, then you're never gonna receive it. Another reason why you're not gonna succeed in 2022 is because you just won't let yourself have it. Being internally scared about actually accomplishing something is a real fear, because what if you actually do accomplish what you're trying to do and you feel the same? That brings a whole another host of issues and problems, because maybe the issue was never the goal, but maybe it's you. Gay Hendricks has a book called The Big Leap, which I haven't read it, but I know the gist, kinda, which she basically just talks about why people self-sabotage themselves. It's because of hidden psychological barriers. The first hidden barrier is feeling fundamentally flawed, kind of like you feel undeserving of success and happiness. The second is disloyalty and abandonment. Sometimes we pull away from checkpoints because we don't want to abandon people, and we don't want to show disloyalty by surpassing them in some type of way. When you outgrow a lifestyle, that also sometimes includes outgrowing the people who came along with that lifestyle. The third is basically more money, more problems. So shouts out Biggie.
It was all a dream.
The fourth is the fear of outshining. If you're putting in the work, you're bound to surpass people around you, especially those who are in the same field but are just not putting in the same work as you. Outshining other people could make them look bad and feel bad. Now this really does sound like a personal problem for them, and honestly none of these hidden barriers are good reasons for people to not actually pursue what they want to do. But hopefully just saying them out loud and identifying them can make them really sound ridiculous as you may think they may be. Those are some reasons why you're not going to make it in 2022, so prove me wrong.